Montmartre was as full of life as any other night. The moon was shining above the roofs and illuminating the cobble-paved streets, where artists, dancers, or the overacting tourist walked. In this very same old part of the city, three friends became involved in a rather comic series of events that were soon to lead them to experiencing an upside-down existence. On enters Louis, a ladies' man of the worst sort, about as smooth as the bread that was soaked and then left out in the rain. Louis had never been a man to make simple plans. Unfortunately, most of his plans were disastrous rather than amusing. His latest idea? To disguise himself as a woman so that he could fully disappear into the fashionable Cabaret of Montmartre. Think of it, Louis said that, tweaking a curly wig in a manner that suggests he was on the verge of changing the world. If I can be the ideal cross-dresser, I can strip for the ladies-only strip-tease show and in return be surrounded by the best call girls. It's genius. His friends were dubious. Looking rather skeptical, Mark continued to sit in the corner with a glass of cheap wine in his hand, sulking most of the time. Jules was a rather large man, with an even larger heart that was nearly as big as his waist, and he could only burst into laughter. "My friend, you are as charming as a sack of potatoes." For a moment, you could have sworn that the captain meant to turn you into a sack filled with floppy potatoes. Louis did not bother with it, and after few glasses of wine, he started with his plan of action. The change was a spectacle of sorts. He wore a pink frilly dress, which resembled more something from a dollhouse of a Victorian era, and a wig that looked even bigger and more piled up than the Eiffel Tower, and of course, heels that could be best described as delightfully unrealistic. All the fun was on the faces of his friends as Louis danced before the mirror. He tried to mimic the ladies by spinning round the room as he struggled to learn how to walk in high heels. This was like trying to get a giraffe to salsa dance. "I look fabulous," Louis smiled, almost falling off his stiletto heels. Now for the real test, time to charm the crowd. Mark and Jules looked at each other, sizing the odds of how long Louis would survive before stumbling over his skirts. They went with him to the cabaret, and Louis took a big breath and stepped through the door with purpose. Everybody stared at the sight of Louis in drag, and no one said a word. The hostess, a tall woman with a face that would put the milk in the refrigerator, frowned and gave a surprised look. "Can I help you, miss?" she asked, eyes moving over him from head to toe, probably wondering if Louis was attempting to start a new trend in dancing called falling over. That did not deter Louis, and he bowed low and winked at her. "Oh yes, dear," he replied in his feminine voice that mimicked a bird more lost than any bird could ever be. "I am here to enjoy the best show in Montmartre. Maybe some can-can, maybe seduction?" The hostess blinked, and then she started laughing. "Flirtation?" she repeated. "Honey, you are a walking joke. You've got the legs of a chicken and the grace of a giraffe on roller skates. But all right, let's see what you have got." Louis' attempt at trying to flirt with the guests while awkwardly trying to maintain gentlewomanly demeanor was pretty hilarious. He stumbled on his feet, came very close to knocking over a table, and in the middle of a song, his wig flew off and there was a very disoriented but still somewhat majestic Louis underneath. The people laughed out loud. Mark and Jules themselves were not able to suppress their laughter anymore. They were nearly sitting on the floor, laughing to ribs. "Louis, you've made a fool of yourself," Mark said, trying hard to hold a laughter, and then a tear rolled down his cheeks. "I think you really should stick to slapstick comedy." Louis, in the attempt to right his wig and pull his dress down, which had somehow found its way up to his waist, glared at them. "This isn't over. It is not a case that I have to change my strategy. Perhaps you should refine your walking," Jules came in with his advice. "Or at least get a pair of flats." Louis, being an optimist, was not through yet. The next night he came back to the cabaret wearing a different wig, not as tall heels and not as tight dress. As much to his surprise this time, the spectators clapped. Perhaps it was the spirit that he had demonstrated not to be a failure after what happened in the past. Perhaps they were only polite. In any case, Louis had triumphed, not because he was a good woman impersonator, but because he was a good woman imitator. Next time, Mark whispered, try being a man again. It's way funnier. And so, in the end, Louis learned an important lesson. In Montmartre, one does not dress the part to become who one is. It is the spirit and the sense of humor. Even though his cross-dressing may not have got him an Oscar, it most certainly put him on the lips of every comedian and anyone who loved to laugh. Still, who would not want to fall for a man in pink ruffles that even in falling over his own high heels can seduce a whole cabaret? Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe.